Alright, brand new video for you guys today. How are you doing? I still remain Rookman. I hope you guys have not missed me that much. But today I want to show you something pretty basic but yet complicated, and this is where a lot of people have a lot of issues creating their kind of their animation. So you could see on the screen here we have an eye. I'll be showing you how to create eyes with very simple steps, and with this concept you can create different type of eyes you want to create. And one thing most people creating or learning animation don't know is the major emotions comes from the eyes, most especially if you are just a beginner and you are using vector 2D animation. If you have your eyes properly created, you can actually get away with a lot of emotions with the eyes, because the eyes tells a lot when somebody is looking at it or watching it. Alright, so I'll be showing you how to create an eye, so just follow me. The steps are really simple and you can use this to create whatever eye you want, and let's get it started. I remain Rookman, and this is a good time for you to subscribe to the channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead, click the subscribe button, like this video, and also share to a friend. That will help a lot, help us boost our activity on this channel if you have been enjoying whatever we have been creating right here on this channel. And I thank you for your support. Love you guys. Let's get it started. All right, so I'll just go to a new file here and take it from beginning. So the first thing you want to do to create basic eye, depending on whatever eye you want to create, so I'll just be using shapes for now. This is what I'll do. I'll just come in here and draw my circle. I could hold shift. I'm holding shift down to make sure that my circle is a perfect circle, but because if I don't hold shift, you could see it warping and it's becoming oblong and stuff. But when you hold shift, it becomes a perfect circle. All right, so this is what you want to create, and make sure that the first layer here is white. So I'll come here to my fill, create shape tool, and just create. So once it's highlighted, it creates. I'm sure by now you should know how to do this. All right, so the next thing I will do here is I will duplicate this layer. So I'll just go ahead and name this layer. I'll just call it eye. And the next thing I'll do is I'll duplicate it and I'll call this eyeballs. You may have seen this in a lot of videos that you have watched online, but this is just for you to understand it properly, in case all those other videos did not explain the way I am explaining it. This is my concept, so follow me please. So the next thing for you to do here is you highlight the circle for the eyeballs, then you drag it down to the middle. But you could see what is happening here. I drag it down to the middle and I bring it to the center, and I'll use make sure that the whole circle here is selected. Then you use your fill tool, then you turn it to black, red, or whatever color. For this video we're using black. Then you make it black. Then I'll reduce the shapes here. I'll reduce the width. I'll reduce the line width and make it 0. So after doing that, you have created your eye. The next thing for you to do is add another layer and create the eye cover. Now what this is maybe is when you want your eye to blink, so you need something to like cover the eyes. So we'll have something like this. And now the color here could be any color you want. Mostly this will be the skin color of the character you are creating, and if it's a lady you can make it pink or whatever color that looks a bit girlish, that suits her lipstick, her shoes, or whatever. You just make it that color. So I think for this tutorial we'll just make it light brown, so we'll assume that is the skin of the character. So at this point here we'll reduce the curvature, and here we'll do the same. And we could just make it pointy, but I don't want it too pointy, so that is why I'm taking that route. So we'll just adjust this properly, and this is what we have. So the next thing for you to do now is hold shift and highlight all the layers here and go to group here and select group with selection, and you name the whole group eye. Alright, so the next thing for you to do is make sure your origin, this point here of the eye, is centralized, but not yet. We'll centralize it. So the first thing we will do here is we'll go to the eye itself, the first layer, we'll highlight it, Ctrl C, Ctrl V, you drag it to this other side. So we're going to make the right eye because we've made the left eye, so we'll make the right eye. Then we'll go to the eyeballs, Ctrl C, Ctrl V, hold shift, you drag it to this other side and make sure it's centralized. You go to the eye cover, Ctrl A to highlight all, Ctrl C, Ctrl V to paste, then you drag it to this side. So you have it like this. The next thing for you to do is go to your eye layer here and make sure that your origin here is centralized. So you have this box hovering over the two eyes, so you can actually, scale them together and everything is working perfectly well. Alright, so the next thing for you to do is double click on the eye layer, go to masking, hide all, apply, and boom, automatically you have created your eye. Now this is how you create your eye. I'll quickly render that out so you see how it looks. Alright, so you can see everything is like super perfect. Okay, now this is where it gets a bit tricky. The next thing for you to do is you need to create different eye motions, like the eye looks left, the eye looks right, the eye looks up, the eye looks down, the eye blinks, the eye winks, the eye does all these other things you want. Now you can go on Google and create and look for references of eyes. A lot of artists have been able to upload a lot of great stuff on Google, so you could see eye winks, eye blinks, eye angry, eye, whatever. Just look for those if you can't think from the top of your head. But for this quick tutorial, this is what I want to show you. This is the main idea. So, and for you to go ahead, you have to bone the eyes. Most of the time you can bone your eyes with your character, or you can bone your eyes separately. Like if I should bone these eyes separately, all I have to do is just make sure the eye is functioning, and I just drag it and drop it in my character and bind it to that character. But if I want to manipulate the eye, I will have to go into the eye bone and manipulate the eye separately. What this will help me do is I will be able to create my characters quickly and just drop my eyes or mouth and whatever layer I have, and I'll just create on the go without having issues of start recreating the eyes, recreating the mouth, and so on and so forth. Okay, so let me show you how to bone the eye really quickly. So on this main layer now, we'll convert it to bone. So that means you left click, convert to bone. Alright, we now have a bone layer here, and you can see your bone tools are appeared here. The next thing for you to do is add a bone layer. So we'll add our first bone layer. You can add it anywhere you want. You can add it in the center, because this will be the main bone that controls the eye itself, or you can add it on the side or whatever. So maybe I will just leave it at the center here. I'll go ahead and reduce the bone strength of the eye. So you can do this in like so many ways. So this way I'm showing you right now is this bone you see here now would manipulate. If I attach it, if I bind it to this eye, it will be able to move the eye whenever I want. Take for example, so if I come in here and bind the cover to this bone, let's say I bind the eye cover here, I bind the eyeballs, I bind this eye. So what I have successfully done here is make this bone the main motion bone for this eye, where I will be able to just use this bone to move the eye around as I want. Okay, and I don't know, for whatever reason you would want to do that, or I could just leave it like that without binding them to this layer and just create the eye actions in whichever way. Okay, I hope I'm not getting you confused. That is, maybe if I don't have this bone here, I'll delete this real quickly, and I'll just go ahead and add a bone, and I'll just start creating actions. I'll reduce the bone strength of that, then I'll call this maybe blink, then probably /open. Okay, then I would go to my actions and just add a new action, blink /open. You could see it's we're already creating the eye. So I created a bone first, named the bone by clicking on this bone tool here, the first one. Then all I have to do is now go back to my action, create an action by clicking new action here. Then we created the action. Then you could see the bone is well highlighted. Then all I have to do is come to my bone constraint here and add an angle constraint as I want. Then I'll take my rotate tool and rotate the bone either up or down. So down should be blink, then up should be open, isn't it? So down, so you could see I have moved from frame 1 to frame 48 so that I'll have this space of animation action to work properly. Okay, so all I have to do is just go to the eye cover, since this is blink, and just bring this down, that's all. So we have this. You could see the bone reacting properly to that, isn't it? Then I go back to my main line, double click on my main line, then I go back to the main eyes. So when we test this out, you can see it's working perfectly well. All right, so the next thing for me to do is go back to my actions and click, since make sure the bone is highlighted, and go back to my actions and I click it. You would see it will say blink /open 2. Then I hit OK. Then I'll go back to that same 48 on my timeline where I have my new action. Then I'll click up. I'll raise the bone up. Then make sure you are raising the bone up on the bone layer, not within the eye cover, because if the action on the bone is not placed, whatever action you put on the layers themselves, it will not show up when you are creating your animation. So as I have done this, the next thing for me to do is go to the eye cover and drag this up like this, and drag this up like this. So we have the eye opens up. So when I drag this back, you could see what we have, right? Then I'll go back, double click on my main line, and go back to my eye. So you can see we have successfully created the eye open and eye blink. So we now have the eyes doing like this. Pretty simple and basic. So the next thing for you to do now is to move your eyes to the left, to the right, up and down. And for us to create that is the same process, using the same action process. All right, so make sure you come to your bone tool here, this one, this select bone tool. You click on you click outside here and make sure that this bone is not selected. All right, so you go ahead and add a new bone. The new bone now will be up, eye up and down. So you could just name it up, then /down. Go to your bone constraint, add your bone constraint angles like this, and the next thing for you to do is go to your action, and once you click add new action, you will see, since the bone is highlighted, it will appear there. Then you click OK. Then it takes you into the action timeline. Then you go to, like, you can move much more further frames if you want, but I think 48 is a perfect number on the action timeline that allows your action work properly. So we'll go ahead and take our bone tool here and rotate. Control Z. So now you could see what's happening. I'm trying to rotate it and the eyes is moving. Why? This is because the bone strength is still on. That is why the eyes is moving. So I'll go back to my main line, double click on it, and go to my bone strength and reduce the bone strength, because the bone strength now, it takes control of the layer itself. So that's why you have to turn the bone strength off to 0. You can see it here. Once you click on the bone strength, you will see your bone strength tab appear here. You can just go ahead and make it 0 if you want, or you come to the bone itself and drag and reduce it to 0. All right, so once I've done that, I'll now just go back to the action itself, double click on the action itself here, then I'll go to frame 48, then I'll raise it up so you could see it is no more affecting the layer itself. Alright, so just in case you are having that issue, problem solved, isn't it? So I'll raise it up to take my eyeballs up, then I'll go into the eyeballs itself, then I'll come to my layer here, hold shift and drag the eyeballs up. Alright, I could drag it out if I want, but maybe I just leave it here. Make sure it's straight, holding shift. Alright, then I'll double click on my main line and I'll go back to my eyes. Then immediately, since the bone is still highlighted, I'll go back to my action again, add new action, up and down 2, then I'll go to frame 48, I'll take my rotate bone tool, I'll drag this down, then I'll go to the eyeballs itself, come to my layer tool here, hold shift and I'll drag it down to this point. Perfect. I'll double click on my main line again and I'll go back to my eye. So when we come here now, you could see our eyeballs moving here and we have our blink. So the next thing for us to do is to make the eyeballs go left and right, isn't it? So very quickly I'm going to do that. The same process, I'm going to add a bone here, making sure that all the bones are selected. This is the only one selected. Then I'll go ahead and reduce the bone strength width. Then I'll go ahead and add my constraint and close, and I'll go ahead and name the bone. So eyes left and right, LFT/RT. Alright, so the next thing for us to do is go to our new action, click OK, go to frame 48, use our rotate bone tool, rotate it to your right, my right rather. And the next thing for you to do is go to the eyeballs, come to your layer here, hold shift, drag it to this point, then double click on your main line, go back to your eye tool, then click again, new action, you see RT2, then we'll come back to frame 48 here, come back to our tool here, go to the eyeballs and hold shift and drag it to the left. Alright, so always make sure you save and double click on the main line and we'll go back to our main eye character. So and also you can turn on the labeling for these bones by using your bone select tool and select the bones and come here to show label so that you see which bone is which and you know what to control when you want to control these bones. Alright. So the next thing for you to do here is you test it out. So we have our eyes going left and right. So you should notice the second one is not moving. Why? Because we missed something. So we'll go back to our RT2, double click on it. If you notice on the bone, I said this initially, on the bone there is no action here. So we will quickly add that action by just rotating the bone to that point. Alright, then we'll double click on the main line and go back to our bone. And this is what we have. So we now have it functioning properly. Now you can see I'm really enjoying this because I had gone through some issues, and this is what happens when you are creating animation. These issues keep coming up, and knowing what to do and knowing why you are having those issues, it's something that will help you create your animation faster, because you could see that I knew I had an issue, but I knew what the issue was and I had to solve it. So practice, practice, practice. Alright, so eye open, you could see it going left and right, looking up, looking down. You understand, we have a blink, the eyes are there, and everything is functioning perfectly well. So what do you want? So how would you now create your eyes where you now have one of the eyes, will I say winking or looking smaller than normal, you compress it and so on and so forth. So if you really want to create all those, one of the things you do is the same thing as we've done initially, create an action and squish and squash the eyes whichever way you want. So I'll just quickly do one for you. So use my select tool and deselect this. So I'll add a bone quickly, then maybe I'll call the bone squash, I don't know, let's see. Ctrl Z to remove that pin bone. Alright, so I will just add a bone here. Then I'll call that bone what will I call it? Let's say squash and stretch. Let's just say squash, squish, whatever. SQICH. So I will reduce the bone strength to make sure that it's not affecting my bone. Then I'll go to the bone constraint and make it 70. Regardless, just so you know, you can make this 90 if you want, so it will be very flat. Let's say we'll turn this 7 to 9, and we'll turn this other one here to 9. So you could see your bone constraint is very flat. So whichever way you want. I just like to leave it at 70 because it doesn't make much of a difference to me, as long as I have the actions I want. So the next thing for me to do here is go to my action tool, add this tool here, then add that action. And the next thing for me to do, so that I don't make the mistake I made initially, is rotate the bone. So as I have rotated the bone, what I want to do now is probably squish the eyes like this. Alright, so maybe he's trying to, you know, look at somebody in a very weird way. Alright, then we have something like this. Then I'll go back to my main line, double click on my main line, and come back to my main eye character itself. So you see I have this, so you could see him looking like, what is going on here? So you could see you could use this also, and we could still add another one if we want. And since we still have a second one here, I'll just go to my action and add another squish, then probably add a squish to like the main eye itself, or I will just create a different bone so that we don't have an unnecessary mix. So let me just click out of that, double click on my main line. So I'll add a different bone. Let me add a different bone. So I'll add a different bone and do a one eye squish type of thing. I'll bring this down, reduce the bone strength, and add my constraint and call it SQUICH squish 2. You can call it whatever you want, since you are the one creating the animation, but for this tutorial's sake, that is what we are calling it. And I'll go and add it to my action, and I'll rotate it to this side. So what I'll do now is, since I'm working on the eyes itself, I'll come to the main eye here, and I'll just squish it, probably something like this. And I'll go to the eyeballs, I'll squish it too, but drag it down here and come to the eye cover. I could leave the eye cover at that, or I just drag it down also, something like this. So I'll go back to my main line, double click on my main line, and go back to my eye. So if we try this, if we manipulate this, we'll have something like this. So you could see we now have our eyes acting something like this. So you could see you can go ahead and use your actions to create a different type of eyes. One of the wisest things to do while creating your animation as a beginner or a pro is making sure that you have created all these actions pre-made down before you start any animation. I hope this is helpful to someone out there, and if you are looking to create different type of eyes, this is just the same way. This is a cartoon eye anyway, so if you want to create a human eye, it's the same way. It all depends on the concept you have in mind and your creativity as well. So if you enjoyed this video and you have a question, please drop a comment below, and also do subscribe to the channel and click the like button to help us keep moving forward. And if you want to learn more animation or more stuff about rigging and animation, check out these videos here, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao.